The nation of Australia's travel advice. So the government of Australia is declaring exercise normal precaution when traveling to the US and Canada, as well as Japan and South Korea. Of course, they're bro out here in New Zealand. But yellow countries exercise a high degree of caution. So Mexico and most of Latin America is in that territory, except for Argentina and Uruguay. I have heard Uruguay is one of the safest places in all of Latin America. Funny enough though, Australia has the UK in this same category. I mean, I've been to some pretty interesting areas of London, I'll say that. I still don't think that country is anywhere close to some of the bad places in the US though. I wonder if that's part of the consideration though. Like, a lot of tourists would be going to London, for instance. Like, they're not counting some of the places less traveled that might be more dangerous in the US. If you go in the touristy parts of Mexico, you'll be fine. Also, Germany, Belgium, and the Netherlands. I don't think there was a single second I felt unsafe in Germany. Of course, with these travel advisory maps, there's a lot of politics that go behind it. I always cover these like every couple years. COVID was a big one, why the USA had like all of Europe in yellow. In orange, the Australian government is recommending you highly reconsider your need to travel. That's mostly Pakistan, Egypt, Ethiopia, parts of Africa, and then finally in red, do not travel. Of course, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, Syria, Russia, Ukraine. Oh, and then there's North Korea. Myanmar has their own little civil war. This doesn't have as much red as I've seen from other countries. We've looked at travel advisory maps from the US and France, and I feel like there's more just completely banned places. Bulgaria and Romania are safer than France and Germany. Brothers across the Danube. Did we finally do it? Top airline routes by revenue, and this one might be shocking. Number one is Sydney to Melbourne. Again, a country we were just focusing in on, Australia, with revenue exceeding over 1.2 billion. How? I'm guessing there's obviously not a whole lot of effective trains, but is also just like the car infrastructure here horrible? Maybe a lot of traffic. What's crazy is it's not even a far route. It's actually one of the shorter ones here. Yeah, them airlines just must be doing those people dirty, I think. Number two seems a lot more obvious. This is New York to London from JFK to Heathrow. I figured that would probably be number one. It's not too far behind either. I mean, but that makes sense. It carries you across an entire ocean. It's one of those maps that make me really wish I lived in New York or just the East Coast in general. Like, Europe is just a hop away. Like, living in LA, it's so much harder to get over to everything. Interesting, number three is also another domestic flight. This is just Saudi Arabia to Saudi Arabia. Again, revenue over 1 billion. The fourth place one is right next to it. Then there's LAX to JFK. That's the fifth most revenue. Then San Francisco right above LA, also to New York. That's just in sixth place. Yeah, all three of these flights just connect California to New York. Kind of funny there's nothing from Europe here, and part of that is just because they got such good trains. And actually because of that, the flights are super cheap. A little suspicious though, like, does China have really cheap flights, or how is there not a single Chinese flight? Where are prices still rising in terms of inflation? Most of it's coming out of motor vehicle insurance at 22%. So if your insurance was $100 last year, this year it's $122. That's just so annoying. And in second, motor vehicle repair, I can definitely feel that one. 7% out of hospitals, 5% for rent. Oh, 5% for rent, that hurts. Overall, with all these items included, inflation has risen by 3.5%. Luckily, there are some things that are kind of going down. If you want to say negative 0.1% is down with new vehicles. Airfare is going down, but not as much as smartphones. That's nice. Those were already way overpriced. Most visited museums in Europe. Immediately, I'm noticing how it's really just like Western/Southern Europe. Wow, and London alone has 4 out of the top 10. Of course, the biggest being the British Museum. That's free. Everyone wants to see those stolen artifacts. I think I went to the Natural History Museum in London, also the Tate Modern and National Gallery. Spain has one with the Prado Museum. Number 2 is the Vatican. Then France has the next 3. Of course, number 1 is the Louvre, which I surprisingly haven't been there yet, but it's gonna be hard to beat the Vatican. Oh, St. Petersburg has the 8. Wait, this is in 2023? Who's still going to, speaking of travel advisory, I thought yeah, he still received 3.3 million visitors. That is nothing compared to the Louvre though, at almost 9 million. That's crazy. This is why I don't go. It's just so packed. Oh, apparently most of the museums just in general in the UK are free. I thought it was just the British Museum. Countries which have launched strikes at Israel in 2024. Now the countries in dark green actually helped Israel stop the strikes. The regular green is just neutral, which includes Syria and Turkey. Palestine is neutral. Okay, yeah. So the big one being Iran. Yes, Iran recently launched strikes at the Israelis. And then there's Iraq and Lebanon, who had militias launch drones as well. A little bit of a difference between the countries and the countries' militias. Oh, that's right. We can't forget about Yemen. So this is currently what's going on in this region. This is looking more and more like a big war map that I don't want to say World War III, it's just thrown around so much. But it's funny that 50 years ago, Israel's main enemies were Egypt and Jordan. Also, yeah, they were cool with Iran. Countries with weapons in their flag. Now, some of these are considered melee weapons, the other a firearm. And then there's the base nations that have both. Now, if there were still a bunch of countries with hammers and sickles, is that considered a melee weapon? I mean, a hammer and sickle can be used as that, just not usually. So Iran is technically one of them. So is Saudi Arabia. Wait, what? Oh, that's right. Saudi Arabia literally has a sword sword. It doesn't get more melee than that. But I never realized the Iranian flag had a technical weapon. I mean, I'm seeing it's a lion and sun. I mean, it definitely looks like it could be a weapon, though. It actually looks like a sword. Oman also with some sort of blade-looking thing. Sri Lanka, it's a lion carrying a sword. I almost feel like just having a lion is kind of like having a weapon on your flag. I mean, it's a lion. If you sick a lion at people, you know. There's also Haiti and Belize, Guatemala, Bolivia, and Ecuador. Some of these, the coat of arms hides the weapon so well that I didn't even realize it. I mean, it's definitely a weapon, that's for sure. You just can't really tell. Finally, there's my personal favorite, Mozambique. They literally just have a firearm, and the only nation, according to this map, that has just that. They literally said, let's throw an AK-47 on our flag, as well as, is that a hoe? The book is a nice touch too. What about the 50 throwing stars we have on the US? Flags of the world from least to most recognized is the percentage of correct guesses in a 4-option multiple choice quiz. So since it was multiple choice, we're not seeing like extremely low percentages. I would have loved to have seen this done with fill in the blank. But according to this quiz, only a couple countries were recognized 97% of the time. That would include China, Germany, India, as well as France. There's Italy, South Korea, Brazil, the UK, Canada, which got second, and number 1, the most recognized, is Japan. That feels a little bit surprising. But again, multiple choice. What's absolutely insane to me is that USA is not in that first tier. Who doesn't know that I mean, I don't even think that's coming from a place of bias. It's just like, this flag is on the moon, you know? To be fair, there's nobody on the moons to see that, so the second tier of flags, 95% of guesses were correct. Wow, a little shocked about this one. I had to Google that just to make sure at 100%. I figured it was Iraq, but there are several similar other ones. It's safe to say the French flag is probably the most famous tricolor, although according to this, it's actually Italy. And yet a place like Ireland is in the second tier. I feel like the iconic orange, how does that not give it away? Like, I figured that should be a little higher. Slightly surprised about Belgium, but then again, it's basically just Germany turned upside down, or sideways, whatever. Australia is also a little shocking to me because they often get confused with New Zealand. Argentina? Really? Okay, who's taking... Oh, New Zealand's on this list. Now let's look at the opposite end of the spectrum. These are some of the least recognized flags. Of course, they are either very small islands or small countries in Africa. This is, okay, I rarely see this one. There are quad color flags. I knew that was that one with the V. Dominica, yeah, Togo, Grenada, Rwanda, Namibia, Burkina Faso, Benin. I feel like if this quiz was conducted as a fill in the blank, there'd be so many flags that would get like 0 to 1%. So maybe that data wouldn't be that interesting. The world's top 10 automotive exporters, as well as how much they've increased in the last 20 years. Turkey starts the list. They started at 0.3, now they're at 1.7. That's still 25 billion though, which is nice. Then there's Thailand. I actually didn't know Thailand made cars. 30 billion. I guess a lot of countries technically make cars. Just not everyone buys it. Well, specifically in America is what I'm thinking. Yes, this is probably why I didn't know Thailand makes cars. I don't know how to say that. Thai Wrong Union car. Looks kind of like a Ford kind of. Oh wait, dang, these look kind of tight. Whoa, yo, what? I want one of these. Looks like a Jeep. I like Jeeps. Damn, that's tight actually. There's the UK, which I'm a little bit surprised about, only an 8. And actually they've decreased in the last 20 years down to 2.7%. Still with 41 billion though overall. The British have probably decreased just because there's a lot more players and a lot more countries that are producing more cars. So technically their percentage and their grasp, it was gonna go down. What cars are made in Canada? They started at 10%, now they're down to 3. This is including some of the other companies like Toyota and Honda and GM that's made in Canada. Ford Canada, is this something? I think it is. Crazy to see the little country of South Korea, and they've been growing too. They are beating out Canada with 77 billion. China in 5th. Of course, they have exploded in the last 20 years. Then there's Mexico. A lot of cars are made in Mexico now, 129 billion. Japan is 3rd. I knew they'd be pretty high up there. Now their share has gone down, interestingly, but they're still making good money. Finally, the US is getting beaten out. I mean, the US, don't only people from the US buy US cars, which is still a pretty big thing. Finally, number 1 is the EU, who pretty much remained about the same, but remember in that time, they lost the UK. The UK used to be a part of the EU, not anymore. Is that even taken into account? Wow, 700 billion in exports. Those are crazy numbers. Remember, this includes all the EU, so you're talking dozens of countries, and the big ones being France, Italy, Germany. There's so many countries in there that make cars. Germany's the largest car market, but Italy is a big one. This map is showing single-handedly Germany just just carrying everyone in this continent. I think I'm just thinking of like Ferrari out of Italy, but yeah, there's some fancy ones in there. A guide to the oldest existing subreddits, and funny enough, some of these really don't have many members, especially like REU, only 6,000 members, but it's the 14th oldest. Look at Portugal going hard. Remember that Reddit started all the way back in 2005. I don't think I first started using Reddit until like 2011. I love to see these countries entering as some of the oldest subreddits. Poland and Hungary. There's Japan in the top 10. Man, look at Spain go. That's interesting, especially because, I mean, Reddit used to be pretty English speaking. Oh, that's right. Then there's the French, and then bam, Germany's huge still. 2 million members, and it's the 5th oldest. There's the Olympics, features, bad things, and then just Reddit overall, reddit.com. Now there's so many subreddits and so many variants, and it's just hard to even keep track of it all. How do you find this information out? When did I start my subreddit? It was definitely years ago. The Taliban's new arsenal. So we're talking equipment and weapons of this organization from Afghanistan. So they've got just about over 100 helicopters and just over 50 fixed-winged aircraft and 176 artillery pieces, a bunch of pistols, a bunch of rifles, night vision goggles, radios, 8,000 trucks. Man, where'd they get all this? 42,000 trucks and SUVs. Where did we get this info from? Armored personnel carriers. So they've been doing a lot ever since the US pulled out. They've been finding ways to get a hold of some structures. 22,000 Humvees. I mean, they're pretty much locking it down over there, so we have to keep an eye on all this. We're gonna wait. Actually, you know what? The US just stay out of it. US, stay out of it. Apparently this is what was left. Ooh. Now, okay, now it all makes sense. And big thanks to my patrons this month.
Drew, je suis ton père de retour avec le lait, regarde dehors.
DOOCHBAGGINS, Amateur Archaeology, Carmel Saida,
Ich kann ohne Dress Stimme nicht schlafen.
Fredrik Tibblin, Henrik Hedlund, DaBeautiful-MEGAN-Underwood, JohnDenver, KirinoIsBestGirl, the Mexicans, 760.